Yo people, LSM here, this time back at again at the tier list maker. I need to do a new tier list for two reasons. The first reason is that my previous tier list was too much biased. I don't think she's a good representation of what the characters are in the game. And the second reason is that she is already outdated because we got a new no limited support, that's kojou, and he changes a placement of one character that we have. So let me explain what I have here. First of all, tanks, those characters that don't want to die. Locking stats, I think that this is the worst thing that you can have on a character because there isn't much that you can do to save the character, because even if you have good skills, the damage will not be great. Next, I have locking skills, because if the main character don't have a good skill set, at least there are supports that can help him with that, and those supports also have good stats. So besides they lacking a good climax skill, locking skill is not as bad at locking stats. Dangerous but worth the use are characters that have a very strong exclusive talent that changes the game, the way that you play the game, but they have demerits, and if you can play around the demerits, or if you can raise their exclusive talent high enough for the demerit to don't matter that much, they are a good pick for you to use. Find for story are characters that will help you clear star requirements, or they have a decent damage, or a combination of good skills and good exclusive talent, even if their stats aren't that good, or most farmable and versatile characters that you can find early game. Very solid are characters that are almost close to perfection. They have good damage, good skills, and maybe they are missing good exclusive talent, or maybe one of their main skills is lacking on their main job. And best you can find, self-explanatory. They have a perfect kit, and besides they being not farmable, you will not find fault on them. So let's start just like before, bottom for up. First you have tanks. Just like in the previous list, we have 4 tanks in the game, and the name of the game is crossing damage, so tanks are useless because they don't die, but doesn't die, doesn't matter what you wanted to kill the enemy. Sylvaria is the only one worth talking here because she have cross skills that allow her to do a good amount of damage. The thing is, for it to work that well, you need to have maxed equipment and impressive weapons, because herself she lacks the stats, and she can supply that with the equipment that you give her. But for story, all tanks are useless. You don't want to raise any of them. Maybe Handaro if you like him because he's farmable early, but even so, I don't think that it's a good option. Next, we have lacking stats here. For lacking stats, we have Asuna main, and we have Quentur. So first, let's talk about Asuna. Uh, she have good cross skills, Kirito, Emi, and Taiga Cross. The thing is, Taiga Cross being the best skill that she have is locked behind end game, since you need a very high crit rate for it to do good damage. The Kirito Cross skill is very low attack stat, so the damage will be lacking. Her exclusive talent doesn't work on early game because it's crit related, and you cannot crit on early game since your chance is very low. And for her main skill set, it's terrible. It's the single target launch skill set that is very bad, but still she is farmable later, and if you like her you can rise, but in my opinion the lack of stats that she have for early game, since she doesn't have a statistic for herself, is very bad, but she can be used. Next, for Quentur, he have very good skills, but the stats he have is very low, so the damage will not be great. And like I said before, early game it's hard for you to uh, compensate the lacking of stats because you need maxed equipment and impressive weapons for that, and you don't have the luxury to farm for those until later on your gameplay. But still, his exclusive talent is also very niche. He have a 50 chance for purifying his own debuffs. It's not good for most users. There are some story stages that would be good if activated, but I don't recommend him. Next, for lacking skills, we have Accelerator, we have Kurokuhime, Kuroko, and I think that's it. Yeah, so lacking skills because their skills and cross options are very bad, but they at least have the status and sometimes a exclusive talent. First, let's talk about Kurohime and Kuroko. They are the same character, but Kuroko is here and Kurohime is mid, just like Asuna is front. Their skills very bad, but the thing is, they have very high attack, so you can pair a statistic for 10 to help they do what they lack. Uh, for Kurohime mid damage, we have Miyuki support, and for Kuroko, we have Emi support. We don't have a good front 3 skill point support because we have Shizuo support for that, and he have low attack. So Asuna don't have an option to use Shizuo support on this case. For exclusive talent, they are very bad. Kuroko gets a damage buff after climax, which doesn't matter much on story mode since when you are using a climax skill, you normally want to use a area climax to kill everyone, and most enemies will be dead after climax skill, so at that point it's too late to get a damage buff. Kuryokihime gets damage reflection, and it's usually on PvE because enemies don't do much damage, and even if they did great amount of damage, the HP is too high for her reflection to matter. So her exclusive talent is PvP related and useless on PvE. Accelerator have very bad skills. His only good skill is his skill 1, but you normally don't want to use it because you want to use his climax skill that is very strong, but his own gimmick is terrible. The thing is, his exclusive is good for an unlimited, but lacking skills he can use holo support for area damage, but still by himself he doesn't do much. At least he gets a little better later, but I don't recommend raising here on early game because he have only the game plan of waiting for his climax, and that's not very good to have since so many things can go wrong at that point. Next, dangerous but worth it, we have Tomoka and Kirito. So first let's talk about Tomoka. She is the only non-limited that can give you more skill point on battle with her exclusive talent. The thing is that she will give a demerit to everyone in your team where they take more damage, and that is dangerous for early game because you are struggling to survive on some stages, and sometimes you don't have the firepower to kill the enemy with the extra skill point. Her skills herself are terrible. The only thing worth talking is her climax skill, that is a 50% attack buff for the entire team for one round. But besides that, her skill set is terrible. She have a decent cross skills, but since her stats and her partners aren't that decent, she is shafted. She have a heal cross skill with Kaga, and both are farmable, but way later in story. So she's the only farmable healer that you have in the game. The thing is that even if she is farmable, at the point at where you unlock her stage, you already hazed another healer, so you probably will not doubt her for that role. But still, a extra skill point for your team every turn is very powerful but it's dangerous because of the demerit. So if you can work around the demerit, she is worth raising for early story stages. Next we have Kirito. He is the character that I was talking about when I say that someone got changed because kojou support. So before kojou, Kirito was lacking on skills for his role. He is a area character that have a wand for some reason, which is useless in the game, and a shield for his main skill, and all of his cross that did damage were single target, being mostly the Asuna cross skill and to a lesser extent the Lifa cross skill. Now with kojou support, Kirito now have a good AoE damage skill, so that he can be in my opinion, a good AoE character. The thing is that his exclusive talent, which you always want him to have, Bitter, uh, gives him a demerit just like Tomoka, where he takes more damage. So if you can work around it, raise it to higher levels, or maybe you have him in a position where he doesn't take much damage, he's a good character to use because his exclusive is good, the cross skill of Arya is good because Kojou have high attack for a support character. Kirito himself isn't much on the high end of stats, but he have a psyche that helps him, and he's mid tier on that point. So not the worst thing on stats like Quentor. Still, his climax is a 8 CP away. The problem with his climax is that he is too fast for the game, so you probably will be using his climax on round 3, where you most of the time have enough for 12 climax points that will do way more damage than his. But still, he now is a good pick if you can work around his demerit. Now for Fine for Story, we have most of the other characters here. Let's group everyone. Okay. First, let's talk about Emi. Emi is here because she is farmable early and have fragments in Mirage. So you can hide her talents very fast for early game character. So even if she doesn't have the stats that most of those options here have, because she have more chances of being high talent, she can compete on the damage side. She is a dispel user, which is terrible, but since it's story mode, sometimes you need one, so at least you have that. And her clinical skill is good with a good exclusive talent. She is fine overall. For later uses, you normally want her to be with Sadao support because they have a very strong here damage skill, but you don't want to use that skill on early game since she damages herself. But still, very farmable, so worth the trouble to raise. Next we have Isaiah. Isaiah have bad skills for end game, but his skills are fine for early game story because bleed and backfire aren't that bad yet. Backfire is worse than bleed, but it's not that bad because he have a decent number for early game. His climax is also very good. He's a 10 climax point mid damage. Nobody will survive because he have high attack. And his cross options are okay. He have a good away skill on cross and a mid seal. And his exclusive talent is decent. You need a setup to activate it, but at least it's a damage plus that doesn't need that much of a setup to work. Just a debuff on anyone in the field. Next we have Kirino. Kirino is a healer. I had a cheer for her for dedicated healer because it's what she will do. You not use her for anything besides heals. So her exclusive talent you don't use because it's a very niche. You want her to be full statistic. She have a cross that is a super heal skill, which can be useful on early stages where you need that survival because let's say the enemy is going to climaxes, you can kill them the next round, but to survive you need the heal, so she have a super heal option to help her. But besides that, even if she have some decent cross for single target damage, all you want her to do is heal your team. Next here we have Kojou. Kojou is here because of his skill 2 and his exclusive talent that are very good for story mode. His skill 2 is a divinity that dispels all buffs and purify all debuffs. It's not capped by amount where it spells only work on 2 spells or 2 buffs and purify on 2 debuffs. He gets rid of everything, and his exclusive talent allows him to cheat death one time. So the first time he will die, he survives, which helps on some stages that have crazy damage on one position. But besides that, sadly, he doesn't have much going for him because he is stuck with Yukino support since he doesn't have a 0 skill point skill. At least he have a good damage skill on his skill 1, but the climax you don't want to use is bad. Next here we have Miyuki. She have high stats, is farmable quite early on story. And the thing here for her is that her versatility is unmatched on unlimited characters. She have cross for AoE, single target on here, single target on mid, with decent stats. Her exclusive talent is useless, but sometimes you can find a use for it on some story stages. And her climax skill is bad, but her versatility and being farmable earlier is good. The thing for her, going for her is that Miyuki support is one of the best supports in the game, and you mostly want to raise Miyuki support over her. But still, if you have enough for her, she is a fine pick for story because she is versatile. Next we have Shanna. Shanna is here because for early game story, bleed is not bad. Actually, if the battle have a duration enough for it to full works on the 2 rounds, bleed is actually stronger than other skills. And Shanna sadly gets farmable quite late in story. You probably get on her stage mid level 50, so don't count on her being farmable for most of the time. She have some options on for her cross skills being dispel and AoE damage. Her exclusive talent is one of the best that you can find because it can go up to 25%, where most exclusive talents that increase damage here only reach 15%. And Shanna also have what is called again? Let me check what's the name. For some reason I forgot what I call full attack stats, and I don't think there is a name. She have full attack like some other options here, so she can also be a static for some characters, but you probably will be using her own skills because for early start stages they are decent. Next we have Yukina. Yukina is just like Shanna. The difference is that Yukina herself doesn't get to be farmable later, so she later will go down on the list for end game, where for being not farmable, where Shanna goes down because bleed. Yukina also have a spell. She sadly have the worst added spell in the game because she have more than one hit on her spell, and the spell effect only happens on the last hit of the skill. So everything else is affected by enemy buffs. So if you are against a shield or a defense up, her skill will do less damage than normal spells like Miyuki or Emi. For her climax is good, is a standard 10 climax point. Not much to talk about it, it's a good climax. And for cross skill, she have decent area options with Tomo and now Kojou support. Later she gets way better because her elemental is busted, but for before elemental levels I think she's fine for story. Not the best pick you can get, but not a bad one. Next we have very solid, where I have Yuki and Mikoto. So very solid is our characters that are perfect in everything besides one thing, and that thing is what is making that they are not the top tier. First of all, Mikoto, she have a good exclusive talent. Sadly, the numbers there are low. It caps at 10% more damage, but unlike other characters here, Mikoto the exclusive talent buffs the entire team damage. So I think it's the only area buff here. Yeah, it's the only area buff here. So I think that's why it have lower numbers, because it's for everyone in the team. She have a good climax skill with the standard 10 climax point, and she have decent cross options. The thing is, Mikoto is lacking a good area skill. Her skill 2 is a bleed, which is fine early game, but on the future it gets pretty hard, like near level 60, bleed starts going down quite easily because of some things that you can get to boost your damage. And she doesn't have any low cost per damage area. The only area cross skill that she have that is not a debuff and is not front focused with low numbers is Kuroko cross skill, and 6 skill point skills are not good to use. They cost too much and do low damage for their cost. But still, besides that, she is one of the best characters that you can get in the game that's not limited. Next we have Yuki. She is a full mid damage DPS, the best that you can have. She have a 3 skill point for mid damage, a 10 climax point that's not nuke, so she doesn't lose damage for more crit chance. Her cross skills options were average, where she got area damage with what is her name again? Boogie. Yeah, Boogie. And a cross climax with Asuna support, but it was weaker than her own climax, even if it costed more, so it was a meme. Now she got she no, she doesn't got any new cross. Or did I think she did get a kojou cross skill, but let me check here. What is the kojou cross? Yeah, so Yuki did got a cross skill with kojou. Is a 4 skill point front damage, so doesn't fit her role that well because she's a mid DPS. She also have a cross with Kirito support, which is terrible. But still, the thing for Yuki is that her skill set is very good for her job of being a mid DPS. The thing is that she's lacking exclusive talent, because her exclusive is a worse version of Asuna, which is crit hate, and you can't use crit chance on early game because it's too low for it to be consistent. So if her exclusive wasn't that bad, I think she could go here, because even if crit chance is not more damage, it's more consistent damage, so it would make her way better. But still, for early story before Elementum, Yuki is a very solid option. Next we have the top tier best you can find with Taiga and Kuroneko main. So for those two, they think that their kit is perfect for this game because they do damage, they buff damage, and they do ever more damage. So first let's talk about Taiga because she came first. Taiga have a mid-front skill set where she goes mostly on front damage, but have some on mid too. And her climax skill, it's the strongest single target climax in the game. That's not a limited character, because when she uses her skill number 1, she gets a special buff for herself that increases the damage rate of her skill 2 and climax, which they get area scaling on a single target climax skill, which is nuts. Her exclusive talent is what is also one of the probably the best one that you can find here, because it caps at 20% more damage for herself, but she have a demerit where she gets 10% more damage. Which make me put her here instead of dangerous is that those two characters, their demerit starts at 25%. Taiga is fixed at 10%, which is not a crazy big as those two. And she also can kill enemies much faster than those two, which helps her on surviving, because if the enemy is not alive, they cannot damage you. She, I would have her here when the game started. Sorry, when she came in the game, because she didn't have a good single target option by herself. But nowadays she have holo if you want to go full damage. So in my opinion, she is the best character that you can rise on the single target side until you get elementals and all. So for story, I think she is the best single target you can find. Now, for Kuroneko, the best AoE character in the game for the non-limited characters. So, just like Taiga, Kuroneko on her skill 1 have a buff for herself where she increases the damage rate of skill 2 and her climax skill. The thing is that, unlike Taiga, they were smart on her and had set her base numbers so that it was not as broken as Taiga's skills. But still, is very strong because she have a 3 skill point and a 10 climax point. With her skill 1 buff, her 3 skill point hits like a 4 skill point. It have almost the same damage as a 4 skill point area damage, and her climax actually have more damage than a 12 climax point skill, which is quite strange if you think about it, because the cost is just using her skill 1 that also triggers her exclusive talent, and she have a 12 climax point that only costs 10 climax point, so it's easier to use than 12 climax point skills. Her exclusive talent is that when she uses her skill 1, she gets more damage, because why not? Which is crazy. The thing about her here is that this damage up is generic, unlike her damage rate skill. So if you pair her with Holo or another single target character, she also buffs the damage that they get, just like Taiga. So she can also be versatile on your damage options. And this is it, people. This is my definitive list for some time being when we get a new support for the game or a new main, of who you should be worth rising for story mode. I think that you can clear everything in the game with anyone you like, but the hardest option being the tanks. Quentor and Asuna aren't that hard, because they at least have damage options, even if they lack the stats. The thing is for tanks that they don't have the damage. They don't have the skills of the damage. Rentaro at least have a 4 skill point area that don't have the merit, but still low stats. And that's it. I hope that you like it. If you want to create your own, I would be glad to take a look, because I like seeing tier lists of that people do, their explanation, and this is my opinion. So don't mind it too much if you think some characters are good and they are quite low on my list, because it's been quite some time that I played the story mode, so I don't remember everything that you face there, but I think it's a solid option if you are starting and you are asking yourself who to raise. Maybe I will do a tier list after level 60 with the elementals. The thing is that most characters are missing their elementals, like Kuroneko. She is also a very strong area on the game yet, but since she doesn't have elemental, she can't compete on those that have, because she is lacking many effects that they got and she doesn't. But still, that's it, people. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.